That was a close one, guys. Woo! Oh, my heart can't take those week one squeakers like App State and then Idaho. No, actually, it was nice to just enjoy some guys out on the field.
It's just great to have college football back, isn't it? That's what makes it fun. This is where we love it and have such a great time.
Hey, we had Idaho potatoes last week. We got some a little spicier with some buffalo wings this week. Blue-white tailgate is next.
And we welcome everyone to the Blue-White Tailgate. Todd, Jay, Steve, great to have you with us. Josh coming along in just a few minutes as well. And Penn State and Idaho will talk about the game. We'll also preview Buffalo, which will be in prime time, 7:30 at Beaver Stadium on Saturday night. But first, let's go to the PSECU update desk and Josh Sperber.
In honor of the NFL season starting up last night, we're going to kick things off with a little Lions in the league. According to ESPN.com, 33 former Penn State players were named to NFL opening day rosters, and one of whom was recently named a captain. Former Penn State great Saquon Barkley was picked by his teammates to be one of 3 offensive captains for the New York Giants, a team on which he won Rookie of the Year in 2018. As we head back into Beaver Stadium, Penn State's spot in the national rankings remains unchanged. They will stay at 15th in the coaches poll and 14th in the AP poll, where they started off the season. Penn State is 3rd among Big Ten teams behind Ohio State and Michigan, who also stayed put at 5 and 7. During the Buffalo game, Penn State will be honoring one of the most legendary teams to ever play in Happy Valley, the 1994 undefeated Rose Bowl champion football team. There will be some players from the squad on the field being honored by the university at halftime. You won't want to miss it. And speaking of things you're not going to want to miss, we at WHVL are airing our own tribute to the 94 squad, our 94 special, airing later this season.
Yep, Josh, we're looking forward to doing that as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. Jay, you had to coach quarterbacks in your time at Penn State. When they made their first start, did you sense and build some plays in to get the nerves out right away?
Yeah, you want to try and get them some things that they like, some things easy, and get them feeling confident. And it looked like it took Clifford a little bit longer to get kind of going on Saturday, but once he did some really good things.
That ball tends to sail a little high, doesn't it? When they get a little nervous, a little anxious, and he has wide receivers all over the place. So he did settle in and do a nice job from there.
And in fact, Jack Ham and I talked to Sean after the game, and he admitted to us, he said, look, first 2 series I was nervous. After the game, though, very confident quarterback as to how it turned out.
Like I said, I got to watch the tape first before I start evaluating, the intangibles and the little things. But overall, again, when we score 79 points in a game, that's not a bad day.
You know what? They played 72 guys in this game, 23 of which, including the 3 transfers, were playing their first ever Penn State game. When you have a 30-year roster doing that, Todd, it's valuable.
Well, I told you last week the toughest job I wanted was going to be on you, so you could go deep on that roster and put them all out there. But look, that's what those games are for. You got the red shirt rule. You can play guys 4 games and still red shirt them. You want to get the young guys on the field, and we saw a lot of depth at a lot of different positions.
Well, I had my pads in my car. I was warming up. I was ready to go in case they needed an 18th quarterback to get in the game. So I was ready.
Absolutely. Now, they do take a step up this week. This schedule builds. All right, so that part of the building is Buffalo is next. It's going to be a night game. So, Jonathan Sutherland, how do you handle a night game?
We have an increased amount of time to prepare. I mean, there's going to be guys who watch a lot more film, just discuss with neighboring positions of like what they see and how they're going to approach the game. So I feel like with more time comes more preparation or film study and dialogue of what we tend to expect.
Yeah, but usually by the time you get to Thursday, though, Jay, you better have it pretty well buttoned down.
As Coach Bryant used to say, if they ain't coached up by 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, they ain't getting coached up, and you're in trouble. But Saturday, the one thing about the night game is you're fighting a little bit of the The guys that haven't played as much, it's a little more time to sit in the hotel room. They're a little more nervous. Sometimes some of them look at tape, but it's only a difference of 3 hours, so it's not a big deal.
As fans go, you get a little bit more time to run your route and get there to the game for sure.
We're not touching that one.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. But Steve, just to touch on that schedule as it builds, that progressive schedule, 3 games at Beaver Stadium in a row, and a little bit more difficult opponent every single time. And I think that works out really, really well with this particular team, with having a new quarterback as a starter and a defense that can dominate and handle the game until things get settled.
Yeah, in 2 years, Penn State will open at Wisconsin. If you have a veteran team, you go and play a game like that. That's great. With this team, I think the schedule's right for this team. Build, as Todd said, and then you get a bye week to reassess. Coming up, we'll take a look at the Penn State offense as we continue with Blue White Tailgate after this. All right, so it was, 79 points would mean an offensive explosion. And here are the numbers on the offensive explosion. By the way, 492 of those yards were on first down, right? Just as an addendum to that. Our crack research staff didn't go that deep. I don't care who you're playing. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, but week 1 is fool's gold. I mean, everybody.
Sure it is.
There are way more team fan bases that now, after routing an inferior opponent, think they're playoff contenders now.
Absolutely.
We'll see as the weeks come on. But again, 79 points. There's some things to improve, and that's the danger, is that you get fat-headed. But
Yeah, and I like the
they'll be
35 first downs. I
Yeah.
mean, they kept moving the chains in
Yeah.
a variety of ways.
Well, as I was on Sirius XM earlier this week, and I said, here we are on Overreaction Monday.
on both sides. Tennessee fans are jumping off
Yeah,
bridges.
Exactly. So let's get to the Bobby Ray Hall drive of the game as Todd hangs in there.
Yeah.
The Bobby Ray Hall drive of the game looks like this. Brought to you by our good friends at Bobby Ray Hall Honda in State College. And here we go. Well, Sean Clifford gets into the groove on this one. They got Justin Shorter involved early. I thought that was important. Then the running game gets going. Journey Brown played really well. Back to the air with Sean Clifford. Right now, this week he buys himself some time. He says, "You know what? I'm going to keep it and go." Right, and that's just showing some poise that he's into the flow of the game. And then Journey Brown, his first of 2 touchdown runs on the day. We talked about it, not just the speed, but Jay, his ability to run between the tackles is really important.
Yeah, a lot of nice north-south runs out of him, and I think that's going to be important. And when you get in the Big Ten, you got to run north and south.
Well, it was nice to see and find out who was going to get that first touchdown of the season, right? We didn't know how it was going to happen. Journey Brown gets it, and we saw a lot of running backs doing a lot of really good things. And I wanted to mention Clifford. You talked about his rushing and a good decision there. That's one of the storylines that we're waiting to see. How big of a factor is Sean Clifford going to be in the rushing game? He did a nice job. He was part of it, 65 yards, I believe, on the ground himself. Yeah. So anytime the quarterback's making positive yardage in a rushing game, that's a good thing.
And they built in runs for him. I mean, that's one of the keys. It wasn't just I'm scrambling and getting yards. They built in some runs for him. Planet Fitness Players of the Game. Well, when we talk about the Planet Fitness Players of the Game, we mean players. And we're talking about the offensive line and the wide receivers getting it down. Look at the wideouts. The wideouts are our players of the game here.
I thought one of the things that was good is they got wide open, but again, once the ball got to them, they finished the catch. And that was a problem sometimes last year, as you know.
KJ Hamler at 115 yards receiving, his second career 100-yard receiving game, but it's more than that. And here's another one down the middle. There's KJ again. Todd, he's just a big play guy. Now here's Brenton Strange, right? Freshman tight end. Yeah. So he and Levis both get in.
Yeah.
They both get time.
The ball didn't hit the ground.
Right.
It didn't hit the ground. That's what we're looking for is from a wide receiving core is no matter how it happens, the ball ends up in their hands. There was a jump ball there, a couple of deep patterns. And I talked to KJ Hamler after the game and asked him, I said, have you talked with Sean? Because they have a great chemistry, these two have a good chemistry. Have you told him, look, whatever you have to do, just give me another half second. And I'm going to get past that secondary because he's going to take the top off of a lot of secondaries if Sean can get enough time to get it down the field to him.
Because I think that if I had to pick the play that I thought was the best play Clifford made was the touchdown pass to Hamler down the middle, because he got into that 3 to 5 foot circle, Jay, moved, stepped up, kept his head up, some young quarterbacks duck it down and just run right away. He was trying to make a pass play the entire time.
Yeah, he did a good job keeping his eyes downfield, and I think that showed on that play and a couple other ones where he was really focused downfield, and that's hard for young guys to do.
Of course, he got the chance to watch someone do that for the last few years. Trace McSorley,
Right.
one of his better skill sets was to keep his eyes open while he's scrambling to see open receivers.
And we mentioned the running backs and Journey Brown, what he was able to do in the opener. 5 different running backs scored touchdowns. Josh Sperber takes a closer look at the running back room.
A 72-point victory is a confidence boost to anyone on the winning side, but Penn State's young running back group may have benefited the most from the opening week win. All 5 backs who carried the ball scored a touchdown and opened a window to a running back committee that could feature most any Penn State back on that roster.
There's a lot of people that are getting opportunities and are getting opportunities to make an impact in the game, and I think that creates a healthy position, and I think that creates a healthy locker room.
An important part of that running back committee is the balance, utilizing backs with different running styles that open up the game for the entire Penn State offense.
It's really great because there's no drop off no matter who's in there, and they all have specific skill sets that are all very good and work well for them.
Especially positive for the running back room was the play of the 2 true freshmen, Devin Ford and Noah Kane, who combined for 152 yards and 2 scores on 15 carries.
Devin and Noah said they matured. They came out here. They knew what they were coming in the stadium like this. It's fantastic. Your emotions can get a hold of you. I feel like they choked it down, pushed it down, and they grew up. They turned into, I guess you could say, men today.
Running backs coach Jaywan Sider said back in the spring that Penn State could just as well be called RBU, and with a stable of young, talented running backs, he just might be right.
Good start for those guys. I mean, it's a start, but a good start for them.
Exactly, it's a start, and again, and the challenge is going to be as you get into games where you're going deep in the 3rd and 4th quarter, who's carrying it? That's going to be the call you got to make, and are you going to keep them all happy?
No one had double-digit carries in the ball game, and one of the things I found interesting was afterwards in the press conference, to your point about who's going to be on the field, Coach Franklin went to protection very early. He talked about how the young backs protected Sean Clifford. That could be the equalizer. I mean, like the separator between the backs is who's going to do a great job with blitz pickup and who's going to protect Sean Clifford. What we all witness is they can all run the ball.
They can all run it, and the offensive line did a heck of a job. It's interesting when you look at the number of plays in the game that guys played. Rasheed Walker played 58. The only other 3 guys that played more than 50 were Mike Miranda, C.J. Thorpe, and Des Holmes. All guys that needed work. And yeah, I thought that offensive line kept Clifford clean. They did a good job for the backs.
Yeah, and again, it's going to get a little more difficult as we go, but it's good to get that experience and get these guys to understand that you're at a different level now.
Let's get to the tail of the tape to show what that different level looks like. You see what Buffalo did in its opener, and obviously we'll get to it later, their ability to run the ball at 148 yards. But Daniel George and the Nittany Lion wideouts, he feels that they can do a good job of wearing some teams down.
I definitely feel like as time goes on and as the games progress, I feel like our tempo will just get even better because that's something we really work on in practice, just keeping our tempo up, keeping the speed up. And if one person's tired, then I feel like our depth of the receiver is really good, so if somebody's tired, the next person can come in and it won't be any drop in our play.
And when you're a Mid-American Conference team, teams will poach you. All right, they lost 5 to the transfer portal that were starters. That's a problem for them.
Yeah, I mean, they lost a wide receiver to Miami. I mean, they're losing some quality players to some big-time programs. And for a MAC program also, even if they do have great players that start, you start to have the depth issues that you run up to against the Power 5 conference, and especially a team like Penn State that has players all over the place.
Right, and this is something we've seen in college basketball for years, the so-called lower to mid-majors, and all of a sudden you get a really good play. I'll give you an example. Bucknell had an outstanding player this past year, Nate Sestina. He's not playing at Kentucky this year. This is what's happening, and it's happening in football now, same story. All right, we'll come back, take a look at an overpowering Penn State defense in the opener. The defensive line was outstanding. We'll talk about them and more as we continue after this. All right, welcome back. The Penn State defense in the opener again as a starting point. It was, look, I think there's a single person here that thought they were going to give up any points, let alone 7 in the game, just the way it is. But what did you guys think as a starting point for this defense, Todd?
Well, I thought it's the speed. I mean, it's just fast all over the place. When you see Brandon Smith making hits and tackles, and, this is deep into the ball game, and he's, freshman, and, this is talented and fast defense.
Well, I'm not gonna make any friends with this, but I gotta confess, as a parent who has kids that play sports, I kind of felt okay with Idaho getting the 7 points.
Oh,
just
yeah.
Because it was so, you want to shut up, and you're like, oh my God, that was such a rough day. But again, they were better than Idaho. They showed it. They played like it.
Yeah.
They didn't make many mistakes. You'd like to see them cause a couple of fumbles, turnovers, because they need to improve on that and go from there.
Yeah, that's a big part of this along the way. I think in the end, if a successful season might correlate to double-digit plus giveaway takeaway. We'll see how it plays out. They're even after week 1. Now, let's get to, but there was only 54 plays, too, in the game. John Reed played the most plays on defense at 29 in this game. So let's get to the Planet Fitness players of the game defensively, and it is the big guys up front because they are our defensive players of the week. They came at him in waves. 99's pretty good. Wow.
You think?
Yeah, I like him. Petrino, 99 and 18.
See, that's where he lined up a tackle, and that's just not fair. Because the guard was saying, wait a second, he's not supposed to be in front of me, and then here he came in.
Jason Oweh, they ended up as a defensive line. Now, this took a little bit more work.
A little more effort to get the 285-pound quarterback to the ground.
Yeah, you can see Windsor and
somebody, a little help over here. A little help.
I mean, all that work in the weight room with Dwight Gall paid off on a couple of those sacks because he's a big guy. But the defensive line itself had 6 sacks and 7.5 tackles. And look at Jay, if you're getting pressure with just 3 or 4, that changes everything.
It's the whole ball game. If you can rush the quarterback with 4 guys and get there, you can cover with 7, and you're going to make life difficult. And that's what they did Saturday. And if they can continue to do that, that's going to pay major dividends for them.
So Todd, let's bump it to the next line. What do you think of the linebackers?
Well, I thought the linebackers did a nice job, and one of the things I mentioned last week is I didn't want to see the secondary make a lot of tackles. That was one of my keys to the game. I didn't want to see the secondary and the safeties making a lot of plays. They didn't get past the linebackers very often, and you mentioned, we didn't get to see a lot of the guys because they didn't need to play a lot of plays. I mean, it's not often we're going to see Micah Parsons with only 1 tackle because he didn't really need to make a bunch of them. But they looked fast. They looked in position. That progressive schedule that we talked about. It's going to be interesting to see them go against Buffalo because Buffalo wants to run the football. And they have an offensive line we're going to discuss a little bit that's capable of doing so. But the defensive line was deep, and they rotated so many defensive ends in. When they get a third down and it's an obvious passing down, they can send all the ends in at tackle and go. I mean, it's going to be really fun to watch what they can do this season.
One of the keys of playing secondary, I used to talk to your dad about this. He'd tell me about this. He'd say, look, he said, you got to see it, believe it. A guy like John Reed had the pick. You could tell he saw it right away and believed it right away.
It was a great play, and I think that the experience of guys like Reed is going to help them because, again, it's a building process and it's a week-to-week thing.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get to the tail of the tape between Buffalo and Penn State. All these numbers are just based on the opener. And you can see offensively, I mean, the key is the 284.5 yards a game rushing for Buffalo. I mean, that's the ball game right there. Last year, Penn State gave up about 165 yards a game. And Todd, that goes to your point about, look, this will be an interesting test because of that offensive line and those 2 running backs.
Well, and it goes right to the tackles that we talked about. When they're not obvious passing downs, you have your tackles. Are they going to be able to clog the middle? Are they going to be able to create that chaos in the traffic? It may not make the play. We didn't see Damian Barber. We didn't see Jonathan Sutherland. We didn't even see a couple of the defensive players last week. They're back, so it's such a deep rotation. What happens when they need to be on the field? Who are going to be the starters? Who are the guys that are going to be the ones that you can go to and count on to clog that middle and stop the run?
Well, a guy in his limited playing time to this point in his career, and he's getting more and more, is Jonathan Sutherland. He's always played the run well, and he knows how important it is this week.
The same, doesn't matter who we're playing, and we take pride and we try to rise to the occasion and try to fit into our standards. So I don't think our approach to Buffalo is going to change as it was to Idaho.
Yeah, I mean, but again, this will be another step, Jay, that shows what they can do.
Well, as we're going to talk about in the film room, I mean, Buffalo wants to run the football. Their 2 tailbacks You know, they had a 1,000-yard rusher, an 800-yard rusher. When you look at what they did against Rutgers running the football last year, they did a much better run the ball against Rutgers than Penn State did. So we're looking at a legitimate offensive line and some legitimate backs.
We're going to go to the film room. I believe Jay is going to review the movie The Natural, which was filmed in Buffalo. No?
It was filmed in Buffalo?
Yes.
I did not know that.
At War Memorial Stadium, where the Bills used to play.
Learn something on this show.
Film room after this.
Welcome into the film room where we are going to break down Buffalo. It is brought to you by Beer Bellies Beverage. All right, so 79 points for the offense. Perfect game, of course. Well, you know, what could be wrong? What could be wrong when you score 79 points, Jay? He's a coach. Of course he found some things to pick apart.
Absolutely, that's what you got to do, especially when you have a young team that scores 79 points, because everybody in town is going to tell them how great they are and how perfect everything was. It was the best offense they've ever seen.
And you're here to tell them it wasn't.
Well, no, I mean, look.
But it was good. Yes, very good.
Nobody's pitched a perfect game in college football. But let's take a look at one thing that really jumped out as I look at it. If I were a coach, I would spend some time talking about these things. When you look at third conversion downs, meaning third down and fourth down last week, the average length to go for Penn State was just 4.6 yards, which is a pretty low number. They were just 3 of 11 on those. They ran 11 plays, only 8 yards. 1 of 6 passing on those downs for only 8 yards. And the most troubling thing would be 1 of 3 on third and short when they had to make those short yard situations. And against a team like Idaho, you want to make all those. But let's talk, turning to Buffalo now, let's talk a little about Buffalo. And let's take a look at their defense, because they are a very good defensive football team. And take a look just at their basic defense. So when you go out there Saturday to watch the game, whether you're in the stadium or whether you're at home, you're going to see a 4-down, 3 linebacker set most of the time, even against 3 wideouts with Penn State, which should give them some advantages throwing the football. The safeties are very, very aggressive. You're going to see some one-on-one outside, which will be the first real test that these young wideouts at Penn State have faced, and they're going to get up and be real aggressive with them. And again, let's take a look at it on film now as we go to the video. You can see again, the corners are aggressive, they run the football, and there are both safeties getting involved in the mix. They are committed to stopping the run in their basic stuff. Now, when you look at some of the things that Penn State might be able to take advantage of, when you get into trips, one of the things that they want to do is, because they want to stop the run, and because you have a guy like Freiermuth on the backside who's a legitimate threat at tight end in the pass game, they'll probably keep a safety backside to help with the pass game with that side, which means you're going to have one-on-ones out here. So you're going to have opportunities for Hamler and those guys to get over the top of these guys and make some big plays. Let's take a look at how aggressive they are on the backside. Here's a run up the middle, and there's your safety coming up and making a tackle at 2 yards in depth. So again, if that offensive line and the linebackers don't stop them, they're going to be safeties there. Now, when you play a team that's as aggressive as they are with their safeties, you got to find a way to take advantage of those things. And because they are aggressive, you're going to see Robert Morris does a nice job here. They're very, very aggressive. They come up with the hard run fakes, and Penn State's got to have some good hard run fakes. You're going to get one-on-one out here with posts with an ability to get over the top and try and make some plays. Take a look at the video how Robert Morris gets this done. Again, here's the fake. Both safeties are up there, and look, they're one-on-one. Now, Robert Morris is a good, solid football team, but if that's KJ Hamler, I think that's probably 7 points. One last thing to do, talk about with them on defense. When they get pass rush, which they are very good up front, able to do that, to change up now, especially for a younger quarterback like Clifford, who has not played a lot of football, they'll go from 2 safeties high. They'll blitz and come down to 1 safety, which again changes the reads for you. That's the first thing every quarterback has to learn is 2 safeties high, 1 safeties high, no safeties high. So again, they're not going to just stay static with those 2 safeties. So here you're going to see them walk the linebacker up on the outside, bring the blitz, get a 5-man pressure, and change the coverage, and they're effective at it. Take a look at the video on this one. And again, they hold that. Here comes the safety now. Instead of being 2 safeties high, they've got 1 safety high. And again, that quarterback tried to force it in, thinking the middle was going to be open.
79 points for the offense, 7 allowed for the defense. Again, not perfect, a muff punt, short field they had to work with. But let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. We didn't see a ton of action from the starters, so that's going to be kind of the unknown thing. And speaking of unknown commodities, their new quarterback. We don't know a lot about them, but we do know he's got a good offensive line in front of him.
Yeah, we know that, and we know they like to run the football. And let's take a look at this first full screen for us. Last year, just to give you an example what this offensive line, these running backs were able to do against Rutgers last year, a Big Ten opponent, common opponent. You know, Penn State scored 20 points and ran for 139 yards against them. Buffalo scored 42 and had 182 rushing yards. So they are committed to running the game, to running the ball. Take a look at the second full screen that we got. Again, take a look at this. So again, it's a three-headed monster. The quarterbacks get involved in the run game, as do both tailbacks. 2,000 yards from those guys. Last week, 212. So let's talk about how they get that done. When you talk about what they want to do, again, they're aggressive blocking up front, outside zone stuff. Wide receivers are very aggressive on the block. Take a look at this video, and you'll see how good they are with the run game, what the wideouts do, and look how they stay on their blocks downfield. This guy hits the hole and gets up north-south as fast as he can, almost scores here. Now, one of the other things you're going to see from these guys, you take a look at it, they're going to do some things with the quarterback run game, and we'll take a look at this. Again, fake the ball here. Quarterback keeps the ball, gets outside for a good gain here. So let's take a look at the video here in this one. Again, fake the ball there. Defensive end closes. Quarterback keeps it, gets himself, you know, he's obviously not a burner, but he's a guy that's going to be able to get some yardage for you as well. Last thing I want to talk about is some play action stuff. And again, they're going to play action here. They're going to use these guys to get 4 verticals. If you're too aggressive taking away the run, this guy's able to throw the ball, and we'll take a look at this one on the video as well. Again, quick fake, linebackers step up. When they do go to play action, Penn State's going to have to be disciplined with their linebackers in secondary not to get beat for big plays.
Always great stuff, Jay. And look at this, another relic, the 150th anniversary of college football, and Jay is just bringing out stuff out of the closet. Look
yeah,
at
we've
this
got
thing.
this is a vinyl album that was put out in 1970 celebrating Darrell Royals' decade, including 2 national titles in the 1960s. One of them was a little controversial around here, 1969. But this was fairly common back in that time because before people had video VCRs and DVDs, this was essentially your highlight tape to relive the great moments and the audio of it. This one's narrated by Chris Schenkel, which is really
one of the all-time greats. Absolutely. One of the all-time greats. All right, Steve Jones has to pick this game, the LSU-Texas game. That should be interesting. We'll be right back. Coming up on the Blue-White Tailgate, we got more on the way. The Royal Decade, bringing out the relics in the film room.
A year ago, Buffalo had an outstanding season, double-digit wins, and made it to the MAC championship game. And it looked like they had a foundation coming back between the offensive line, their running backs, and their quarterback. But the quarterback decided to enter the NFL draft. He's gone, brand new quarterback. They've also had 5 guys transfer out of the program into the portal, and Lance Leipold is now rebuilding, Todd.
That's a shame, isn't it? I mean, you had your MAC Offensive Player of the Year, his quarterback, 6'7", 245, and he ends up going pro after entering the transfer portal, and it's demoralizing, Jay. You know what I mean, to the rest of the guys. And I think that's part of the transfer portal is what it is. These guys have earned an opportunity to go somewhere else. I don't have any problem with that. It's the after effects that it leaves on the club and your chemistry when you start losing your team leaders and the guys that have led you to really successful seasons.
No question. And you know, I think as we go, you look at even with Penn State, some of the guys they've lost, as we go down the road, you know, some of that depth of experienced guys you're going to see in some things like special teams and that. But, you know, when you're a MAC school and you're getting poached, I mean, you know, there's just something that just sits wrong, doesn't sit right with me with that.
Yeah. Lance Leipold, let's check out his file, brought to you by our great friends at McClanahan as we looked at an outstanding coaching resume because he has had quite a career at Whitewater with the national championships. Oh, there are only 6 of them. And you know what? He's gone to Buffalo and done a great job, and he also knows the Big Ten really, really well. And, of course, his years back in the Big 12 in Nebraska, yes, he did coach in Beaver Stadium in that 2002 game.
2000. He probably doesn't want to talk about that.
No.
But you know, there's a guy that's won National Coach of the Year 6 times, and that's saying something.
Ooh. He's got a tremendous winter wardrobe, I would imagine, too. He's coaching at Wisconsin, Whitewater, and Nebraska, and now Buffalo. This guy likes the cold. It might be a little too warm for him at Beaver Stadium.
This guy also likes to coach, too. Yeah. He is a good college football coach, no question. He's had to revamp the offense in some ways. Offensive line, a lot of guys back. The 2 running backs, I mean, you watch them on video. They're really good. Patterson and Marks, really good. The guy I don't have a read on, because it's only one game, is Myers the freshman quarterback.
Yeah, and when you look at his resume in high school, very, very successful, won championships, very much like Clifford, and most those guys tend to translate well to success at in college. But again, we don't have a lot to work with. Robert Morris is not exactly Penn State on defense, so we're going to find out some things about him this week.
You know, the other point about the transfer portal is there's reasons guys enter it, and Jarrett Patterson was one of the reasons why one of the other guys went to the transfer portal because he knew he's not going to get his playing time when you have a quality back like that. And we saw it with Pitt a few years ago. A good offensive line is going to work for any running back, right? I mean, and they bring an experienced line here to Beaver Stadium.
You know, Marks is really good, but Patterson has 14 career 100-yard rushing games in his career, 14 of them. So let's get to the offensive line. And that's an area of the field James Franklin is really impressed with the guys up front.
Who we're impressed with their offensive line. They are physical on the O-line and really at tight end as well. But their left tackle, number 67, their left guard, number 72, their right guard, number 65, and their right tackle, number 73. I'm not gonna list out last names because some of them are difficult to pronounce, and I don't want to disrespect any of those guys. But we love how they play on film. They are tough, physical, and play hard. And I think the tight ends complement them as well.
And then you get to the defense. Malcolm Kuntz, Joey Banks, Taylor Riggins. Kuntz and Riggins are bookend defensive ends, and they can put pressure off the edge.
Well, you know, when we got ready for the film room, which I hope you guys all enjoyed, one of the things that really impressed me was how aggressive they are on defense. They play with a lot of confidence. They're going to try and stop the run. They're going to spend a lot of time taking away what they think you do best.
You know, Coach Franklin didn't want to mention those names. He didn't want to mispronounce them, Steve. I don't know. It might be a little pressure. We got some tough names this weekend in the booth. You going to be ready for that?
Patterson, Marks, Myers. We'll go with the people handling the ball.
You'll stay with those guys, will you? Yeah.
It's the analyst's job, and I know Jack's watching. He watches every week to say, what a great block by.
You know, Jay mentioned the aggressive defense, though, and they really need to be. I mean, that's the kind of thing that you have to do when you're facing a team like Penn State. So does that mean some big plays? You know, big playability possibly as they come aggressive and they give them some different looks. KJ Hamler could be a big part of this ball game for sure. And at some point, Justin Shorter is huge. I mean, he's a big guy, and you can see it from way up top, the difference in size. When do they go one-on-one down the field to Justin Shorter a little bit, too? You might see that this weekend.
Obviously, this is not, quote, the best team they'll play all year, but the bottom line is it's a step up. So in the next step, let's see how they handle the next step. I think that's the important part of this game.
Right, and I think the question is going to be if Buffalo is able to get some pressure, and they are better up front than Idaho is, how does Sean Clifford handle real pressure? How, you know, when he's got a guy hitting him as he throws, is he going to be able to make some of the same reads when he's actually getting hit and knocked on his rear end a few times? But we'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, but again,
if not this week, we'll find out soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, no question. But I think it's the running game part, the 165 a game they gave up last year. This team is committed to running the ball.
Yeah, that's the test. I mean, you want a good test for your team as you grow through it in September. You don't want just layups the first couple of weeks. So it's going to be a good thing for them to get tested against Buffalo some.
Coach Lance Leipold has done a great job at Buffalo after a terrific job at Whitewater. He's going to join us here in just a few minutes. And later, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I get the good. Why? Welcome back, Steve Jones. Great to have you with us on the show today, and very pleased to be joined by somebody who's had really an outstanding career. Lance Leipold, the head coach at Buffalo, winner of 6 national championships at Whitewater. Coach, welcome. It's great to have you with us. The tight ends are obviously going to be important in any quarterback, but they also have to be important in your running game. Do you feel like you have the versatility at tight end to handle both in this offense?
Julian Barrasso was a young man that got hurt early last year. You know, he's 250 pounds plus, and another guy that embraces that role of, if you're going to be a tight end in our offense, you need to be able to help us in the run game, not just in passing game.
Let's get to the defensive side of the ball, Lance. When you look at what you've been able to do with your defensive ends, and Patterson, I look at Patterson on defense. Now, I like him on video. You're the coach. You can tell me how much you like him or not. But what are those two ends and Patterson meant to you defensively?
Well, James Patterson, like his twin brother Jared, both were, gray shirts that kind of mid-year enrolled, and it was very apparent early on in their first spring ball that they were going to help our football team in their first year, and both of them had outstanding freshman seasons. James has a great leadership ability. Actually, him and Jared are both captains as sophomores, but James has a great knack for finding the ball. He can play the will linebacker for us as well as the Mike, and learned a lot from Khalil Hodge last year, our outstanding middle linebacker. Our defensive ends are, Taylor Riggins had to step in when now departed Chuck Harris was banged up with injury and really played steady football for us. And he's kind of a guy not many people notice, but you watch the film on Sunday for sure, and you're going, man, he played a good football game. He'll have a big test ahead of him. And then Malcolm Kuntz is kind of a rangier guy that can create pressure on the quarterback, has good length, and does those things. And then Ladarius Mack, Khalil Mack's younger brother, is a guy that we use in passing situations and is a high motor guy.
When you left Whitewater and you took the job at Buffalo, it brought with it obviously a series of challenges. What were those challenges, and what are the challenges of the job today?
Well, it was the challenges to some of those things that we were looking for. I guess is to take a next step in a challenge of the career. One is to coach at the FBS level, and one is to try to build a winning program in a program that's had very minimal success, and that's changing a culture and how you go about it day by day, and you're going to work a little bit better to make it to get a little bit better individually and collectively as a program. I tell our players and staff every day I walk around, what can I do to improve our program? It might be within the walls of our program, how we look, how we go about our business, what we can get to make our players better, and we ask the same of them. So those are some of the things. We've made some of those improvements facility-wise. New meeting rooms came shortly after year one. Just opened up a new indoor practice facility. We did not have one. We're working on some other things. So when I met with then athletic director Danny White, explaining some of the things and the potential of this university and this football program, I thought it was an outstanding opportunity, even though maybe some other people didn't told me it thought I was a little crazy, but I've really enjoyed what we've been able to try to get done here.
It's only been one game, but what do you see in Penn State?
Oh, we don't have enough time, but again, the difference from our first trip there in our very first season is I think more team speed and absolutely more depth. So with that, as guys are getting there, and then the confidence that has been instilled, I think now that Coach Franklin has fully put his stamp and how he goes about things within that program. And then you put that with the tradition and the history, you've got yourself a good recipe there. So when you watch the depth at running back in that first game, you watch a quarterback make his first start but look extremely composed. Speed on the outside. Defensively, again, the length and athleticism of the front seven is something that we just don't see in the Mid-American Conference, and that's going to be a huge challenge for us. Speed in the return game, things like that. So you got to buckle up. You got to play your best football if you're going to have a chance against a team of this caliber.
Well, one of the great reputations being one of the class acts in the business. We always appreciate your time very much. Wish you the best of luck, not only this Saturday, but really throughout the rest of the season, Coach.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and it's a pleasure to be on your show.
Lance Leipold, the head football coach at Buffalo. We'll come back, wrap up in a moment on Blue White Tailgate. Welcome back. It is a special weekend at Penn State because a truly special team will be honored, a team that all of us believes should have been officially crowned as at least half the national champion. How about that?
No, we want the whole damn thing.
All right, there you go. He wants the whole thing.
You can say it. You just did.
All right, you just did. But in 1994, undefeated, in a lot of ways untouchable, and James Franklin knows that they are an important part of Penn State's legacy.
Able to do on this scale was obviously very, very impressive. And then obviously, like you're saying now, after being a head coach in the SEC and being a head coach in the Big Ten, and to be able to do what they did is very impressive. It's also interesting because there's a lot of discussions about national championships, and I think
Yeah, there should be. And Jay, the numbers were incredible with that team.
Think about this. This is an offense. The first team sat out of 12 quarters. So they sat out of 1/3 of the entire season,
Right.
1 quarter of the whole team. And on top of that, the top 14 players in that team played 112 years in the NFL. It's an average of 8 years a guy. That tells you how talented they were.
What's not to love about this team, right? An embarrassment of riches, just the talent rich, right?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
No question. Later in the year, by the way, we will have a special looking back at the 1994 season. We've talked to virtually all the key players on that team. We're looking forward to it. Time now for the segment everyone waits for: the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, the good is that, look, college football's back. I mean, so the good is that we had a good time of a 5-day football fest. It was enjoyable. Now we settle into the season. That's, to me, the good. Todd, the bad.
Well, the bad, I used to work in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I loved covering the Vols. And many people would say the bad is the orange that Tennessee has. That didn't bother me. The Vol Navy is one of the really neat traditions. A 42-foot cabin cruiser, houseboat, or whatever it was, burnt up and was sunk into the river before the game. Smoke billowed over Neyland Stadium, and then during the game, the team choked against Georgia State. It's a bad day all around in Knoxville, Tennessee to start off the season. That, not good for the Vols.
The ugly, I've had more people this summer say, why are we playing Buffalo at 7:30 at night? Well, I want to bring my kids up the whole 9 yards, and I gave them one answer, TV. And the ugly is when you look at Saturday night, and I have to read all, I don't want to read them all off, there are 8 Power 5 conference games in prime time on Saturday night. There's just simply too much exposure, too much TV.
All right, let's get to the picks. These games will all be on TV. Todd, you get Nebraska going to Boulder to play Colorado.
Is Scott Frost, does he have the Huskers for real? They're already in the top 25. They're going to Colorado. That's a tough place to play. I believe in Scott Frost and the Huskers to start it off. I'm going to go with the road victory for Nebraska.
In his first game since transferring to Ohio State, Justin Fields proved that he fit right in with that high-powered offense, scoring 5 times, including a 51-yard rush TD to open his Buckeye account. I don't see Cincinnati coming into Ohio Stadium and slowing that team down. The Buckeyes are going to win big.
I've got Texas A&M at Clemson, and last year this is one of the great games of the entire year. A&M should have won the game last year. They've got their quarterback back. They're playing with a lot of confidence, and when listening to them talk this week, they're not intimidated. I like A&M to shake up the college football world.
And in my Sunday Daily Times pick of the week, it is going to be LSU against Texas. Yes, that is the album. Yes,
Hook 'em.
That is.
You can't talk about it in Texas and not pick them.
Yeah. I'm picking LSU. They're better. I don't care where the game's played. They're better. All right? Texas, it's a Big 12 defense. They can't stop anybody.
Well, hey, Ellinger, 4 games against top 15 teams last year, averaged 354 yards in total offense, 13 TDs, only one turnover.
It's a big game for the Big 12.
Yeah,
They only got 2 teams
question.
in the top 25.
Yeah.
This is a huge game for them.
LSU. All right, so let's get to the Blaise Alexander keys to the game. And obviously, I'll start out with the Blaise Alexander keys to the game. Number one is Penn State's ability defensively to show that they can play the run against a team with a couple really good running backs, a good offensive line. Can they go out and really make them one-dimensional? Jay?
I want to see Penn State get some fumbles. I want that defense. I want to see some big hits, ball coming loose, and stripping the ball, because they're going to need to develop that ability as we go down the season. And I think it'll help them put the pedal to the metal, get this thing going.
It's a stretch to say this is a key to the game. It's something I want to see in the game, and that's the deep passing game. I want to see K.J. Hamler go deep. I want to see Sean Clifford unleash a couple of throws. We know he's got the arm. I want to see him have enough time to be able to go deep with the passing attack.
Well, another fun show for us. You know, prime time. There's 8 choices. Which game are you going to watch?
Well, I'll watch Penn State and Buffalo, but in the back of where I'm sitting, I'll have that Texas LSU game on.
For Josh, Todd, Jay, I'm Steve. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the game this weekend. Thanks for joining us on WHVL.